What is up, everybody, and welcome to Knifecast Episode 1. I am super stoked to be bringing this to you guys. My name is Tyler, aka TovarishWorks, and I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts, Josh, aka Echo Dove's Knives. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys, what's up?
And Frank, aka Dr. Frunkey.
Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here.
Awesome. So we are going to go ahead and jump in and talk about what we carried today real quick. Today I was walking around with my We Knives 717. I picked that up in a raffle recently. It was a nice little win. So that was super fun, chunky little knife. But we'll see how that goes moving forward. Josh, what were you carrying?
Today I had a Shurgoff Neon Light with me.
Nice.
It's a knife I don't really use that much, so decided to throw it in the pocket. Forgot how much I liked it, so that's what I had today.
Nice. And Frank?
I had my new Koenig Arius on me today. I have trouble picking other things right now. I like this knife so much.
That thing is sick, man. The show scale you have with the cutouts and everything is fantastic.
Incredible. And there's some more news on that one maybe later on for another time.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So for episode 1, we really just wanted to keep it short and sweet. We're going to move on to a ton of awesome topics in the future. We have all kinds of things planned for you guys, and we are definitely going to be bringing on knife makers and other members of the community to join us along for the ride. But in episode 1, we really just wanted to kind of tell you guys who we are, tell you our stories, how we got here in terms of our experience in the knife world, and just, let you guys get a sense of who we are and, the biases we might have as you're listening to us and stuff like that. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in, and Frank is going to tell us a little bit about his origin story.
Hey guys, as Tyler was saying, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Frank. I have a YouTube split personality called Dr. Frunkey. I am a neurosurgery resident living in Shreveport, Louisiana right now. I'm basically just going to put that out there. I've slowly sort of trickled this out over the course of my channel. So I'm 31 years old, and I've been doing this knife thing probably for about 3.5 years, collecting. I started out actually with the K-Bar Tanto. Was the first knife I ever bought myself. That actually branched out of a need for a self-defense weapon. I had a crazy neighbor in an apartment complex when I lived in Chicago, and I knew one day he was going to kick my door in because he was like emotionally unstable. And so I ended up buying this big K-Bar Tanto, and then I kind of learned about that knife. It had 1095 steel and a rubberized grip, and I wanted to see what was nicer than that, and I kind of learned about steels, and next thing you know, I'm purchasing a ZT0392, and then a Chris Reeve, and then so on and so forth. And then about maybe 18 months into my collecting hobby, a good friend of mine, actually one of the anesthesiologists at my hospital, said, "You have all these great knives, you're buying and selling them, you should just start a channel. Just talk about your knives and see what happens." And so at the time I had a Spyderco Nirvana, and I had this 0392 and just a couple of other knives that he had let me borrow, like his Spyderco Sage. And so I just started recording myself talking about these things. Actually on the back of my laptop computer, I had a carbon fiber vinyl wrap on my MacBook, and that served as the background for a good portion of my early videos.
That's interesting.
Eventually, I kind of upgraded that, and now I'm doing a little bit more than that. But here we are, maybe about 18 months later, and I've got this channel on YouTube, and I appreciate everybody who's been a part of it. It's exciting to see how it's growing, and I'm happy to be part of this community. Everyone's been really awesome. I really want to say thank you to Tovarish over here for reaching out to me to be a part of this. So thanks, man, very much.
Sure thing.
And let's see, do you guys have any questions about my story? Maybe I could fill in the gaps if you guys had questions. Maybe other people same questions.
Yeah. So at what point did you sort of transition from being this guy who was like absorbing a lot of information about, like you said, you like looked up the K-bar and then kind of like went from there. And I'm sure there was like a lot of research happening in terms of you building up on the knives that you were buying. Was there kind of like a breaking point where you came across a knife and you were like, man, you know, like I understand everything that's going on here, like this is great, and where you sort of felt comfortable being more of like the disher of the information? Like I'll never forget that I learned, you know, that black Timascus had zirconium in it. That's what the black is. I didn't know that. You know, I learned that from you. And so was there like a transition point where you went from, you know, pupil to master sort of thing?
I can't say that I really recall a specific event. I really spent a while doing a lot of reading, playing on the forums, watching the YouTube videos of the guys that were out there. You know, some of my favorite channels were like Jim Skelton, Snuggle Bunny, Nut and Fancy. I was watching these guys, and I just kind of heard the words that they were saying and just kind of read about it. And I think that it became apparent when I was talking, I guess, to my anesthesiologist friend that he had actually bought a Curtis F3, so not a small knife, you know, not a little purchase by any means.
Not at all.
And so he was talking to me about it, and he didn't really know what he had bought. I mean, he knew that it was a steel and titanium, but like he didn't understand why it was better than everything else, even though he had bought it. It's just the only custom knife that he had really had exposure to. And so I started talking to him about these things, and he got excited. I think that's maybe where it came from, because he was like, man, you know a lot about this stuff. You should talk to other people about it. And it was really that conversation that spurred me to do it. And to be honest with you, man, I am still completely in the dark about a whole lot of stuff. I've made mistakes along the way. I say things that are, you know, partially accurate or wildly inaccurate on my videos sometimes because I'm still learning. I try to admit when I'm wrong, but it happens. It's just a fun thing. What I like the most about this community is, save for a few trolls out there, most people are supportive and happy to educate me when I'm wrong and educate each other about the questions they have. So it's just fun.
Yeah, for sure. Nice one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Josh set up our notes for today, and clearly he wants to go last. So I'll go ahead and tell my story real quick here. The fascination with knives started when I was 9 years old, and a buddy of mine had this Gerber Paraframe 2. Now, mind you, this is 1999, so, you know, Gerber didn't make the worst fucking knives on the planet, perhaps, at the time. Not to say that it was amazing, but I bought a Paraframe 2 as an adult to compare, and I remember this knife being much cooler and much better. But anyway.
They were solid back in the day.
Yeah, they were. So I managed to trade something that I own as a kid to my buddy who got this knife from his older brother. And I get the thing in my hands, and I'm playing with it for months, and I absolutely love it. You know, all the different ways I can open it and play with it and fidget with it and everything. And so I brought it to school.
Oh, good idea.
And that was, as you said, a very good idea. So somebody didn't like that so much and let the school know.
Oh, no.
It was the first year of a no tolerance policy. So the knife was actually treated as a Class A weapon. And
did you say zero tolerance?
Well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah, sorry. Had to do it.
Yeah, so they had a zero tolerance policy on knives, and
you can only carry ZTs at this school.
Yeah, exactly. You can only carry ZTs. And I had a Gerber, so there I was getting expelled for my Gerber because
oh god,
Class A weapon is the same class as a firearm. So this little knife with a 3.5-inch blade, I got the same treatment as if I had brought a handgun to school. So I went to court and the whole deal. It was a big thing. I got expelled from 8th grade. Luckily, it was 6 days before the last day of the end of school, so they let me finish it out. I didn't get held back or anything. But needless to say, I took a few years off from knives. Wasn't the best experience. So come like 17 years old, right? Almost a decade later, that part of my life is behind me. I'm free to do my own thing, and I end up at this gun show in like Virginia, and they have knives there. I can't afford guns. I'm a high school kid with no sense of entrepreneurship, but I find these knives, and there's like different flippers and autos and whatever, and so I buy a few knives, right? I buy a handful of knives, and the fascination continued from there. Really, I never had anything worth more than $20 until a little bit more recently, but I always had at least like 10 knives. It was, when people ask me things I was interested in, like one thing that I would say is I collect knives, even if it was a garbage collection. Fast forward to about 2016, middle of the year, summer. I'm searching for computer parts to upgrade my PC, and I'm on Massdrop, and I see that they have this knife section. So I'm like, that looks like something that's cool. And mind you, over the years, I've been going online and making Google Docs with lists of knives I want to buy and stuff, right? But never actually spent the money because didn't have much. But so I'm on Massdrop, and I see this Imcusta RICU with 33-layer Damascus over VG10 core. And I don't know what any of this is, right? I'm like, what is this? Never seen Damascus steel. I thought it was the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So
they make very pretty knives. I can understand the appeal there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this thing totally catches my eye. I do a ton of research over the next 3 days. I teach myself literally everything. I learned all about blade steel, all about how pattern welding works, all about where the name Rikyu comes from, all about this Japanese history, all about Seki Japan, all of it.
Nice.
And I just consumed it like a sponge. So I order this knife, and if any of you know, Massdrop has a 6 to 8 week delivery timeline.
Oh.
So I had bought and I had purchased and had delivered by, Knife Center and Blade HQ 6 knives before my Imcusta ever arrived. That's how into it I was. I never even got the first knife that set off the hobby before I had bought a bunch of other ones and had them delivered. So here I am showering myself in Bokers and all these different $100 knives and stuff. And then I managed to pick up a Wee knife, 604D. And that was the transition. That was the breaking point from when it went from I have no idea what's going on, and this $80 knife is the most excessive purchase I've ever made in my life, to oh, this is what they mean on Reddit. Oh, this is what they mean on Instagram. This is amazing. So I bought that knife for $250, and then it was immediately downhill. I think the next knife was an Olamic 247 that's twice the cost, and then it was a Bodega, which is twice the cost of that. I mean, I just went straight to the moon. So like you, Dr. Frunkey, I started a YouTube channel not nearly as long ago as you, of course. It's been almost a year now, and I've just been having a ton of fun with that, just making videos and talking to people about knives. I'm literally having a conversation about knives every minute of every day with somebody. I've got dozens of people that I text with and Instagram message and Reddit, and people call me on the phone all the time. It's so much fun. So yeah, I just love everything about this hobby. Thank you to all of my supporters thus far. It's been really delightful, and really excited to get into things more live streaming. I know, Frank, you were talking about that. That was such a fun experience. So yeah, that's everything that I love about knives. That's how I got here, was this sort of, really intense curve of nothing for almost 2 decades, and then whew, hockey stick, kind of hockey stick graph, essentially. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Josh, what do you got for us?
If I may interject here before Josh starts talking, your story definitely reminds me of my own in the sort of exponential growth phase there. I got that K-bar, and then I bought a CRKT 8 months later, and then I bought a year later a Spyderco and a bench. Then I got a Benchmade, and then I bought the 0392, and then it was just that was a $400 knife, and then I was like, oh, I can get an $800 knife for a $1,200 knife, no problem.
It starts to become a not big deal very fast. It's surprising.
It's amazing how quickly that happens.
Yeah,
so I
bizarre.
feel you on that.
Josh, what do you got for us?
Okay, yeah. So I have one quick question for you, Tyler, about your origin. So when did the South African market come to dominate you? When did you decide these are the knives for me? for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that too.
Interesting. Let me try to remember. Because, it all started with Thorburn, but I don't remember if I knew what that was at the time or not.
Right.
I think, okay, yeah, it's coming back to me now. So, I was big into knife raffles on Reddit, and at the time, the two big things were Grimsmos and Thorburns. And Josh, this is before your time, I think, on Reddit, but there was a period in the old knife raffle before it transitioned to the one we're in now, where there were a bunch of Thorburns that were available, and they were super hot. They were filling within seconds, and so the word Thorburn was appearing a lot in my sort of day to day, and I remember talking to certain people and being told this is essentially the pinnacle, and so that actually was the big step for me, because I think I had owned a bodega or two at that point, but I had always worked my way up the ladder by trading and spending money. So
custom bodegas or the field grade ones?
Field grades, and then one of them was one of the mid-techs.
Okay.
Which the mid-techs are what the real ones. They're expensive. The full tie.
Yeah, they're basically custom.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Kind of.
It's especially different now that the whole lawsuit's happening, but actually we should probably do an episode on that. But anyway.
Yeah, we can talk about that all day.
Yeah. So the way I had been moving my way up the tiers and getting things like the bodegas and stuff was trading up. So, if I had a $300 knife, I'd be like, here's this wee knife and here's $400. Because the idea of spending that large sum all at once didn't make sense to me. I was comfortable having the money vested in knives, but I never wanted to spend that lump sum on a card. Debit card. But so it happened with Thorburn because everybody's like, you need to buy this, you need to buy this. So I really wanted one with a purple bolster. Purple's my thing. And it was really important to me that I had one with a purple bolster. So New York Custom Knife Show 2016, Tri-City Customs brings home their batch, as is normal for the shows. And they have this L36M with this purple anodized stippled zirconium bolster. And I'm like, there she is. And it was $800. And that was insane to me. But I was like, whatever. I was told this is the right thing to do. So
yeah,
it's
amazing how people can convince you to do these things.
Yeah. So I ordered
peer
the
pressure.
Knife. And interestingly, the knife was actually broken when it came to me. The blade was scraping against the liner, and it had all kinds of issues. So that was kind of an unfortunate experience. But I messaged Andre. They were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna take care of it. So sorry. We'll either fix it at Blade Show. You can mail us the knife in Atlanta when Blade Show comes around to Atlanta, and we'll fix it or we'll replace it." And I said, "Well, I'm going to Blade, so how about I just meet you there?" And
that works.
Yeah, and so I think maybe I owned a JD Van Deventer or something between then and Blade Show. I feel like there was a smaller South African custom that I bought sometime in that time frame. But I took the knife to Blade Show. I had repaired it at that point. I repaired it over the course of a couple weeks. But Andre never got that memo because Mariachi, his wife, read the email where I said, "Hey man, I fixed the knife. Don't worry about it. See you at Blade Show, but you don't need to bring anything." He never got that memo. So I get to Blade Show, and he's standing there at this table by himself with one knife in front of him. And I walk up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Andre Thorburn, my name's Tyler. I'm so excited to meet you. It's amazing to finally meet you." And he's like, "Oh yeah, here's your knife." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "This is your knife. I made this for you because, your other knife was fucked." And I was like, "Well, but it's not fucked. Look, here it is." And I handed it to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this isn't fucked at all." And so I was like,
"Did he make you the same knife over again?"
No, it was different. It was actually better. And so I was like, "Well, I really like this one that you have here more." And he was like, "Well, you can buy it." So I did. And I ended up selling the other one to fund it, which was fine, and that's the L36 I still have to this day. But that was my first foray into South Africans, and it never ended from there, right? I developed a relationship with African Custom Knives, awesome dealer, and more recently in was November, I was up at New York Custom Knife Show. That was amazing, and anybody who watches the channel will know that I got to eat dinner with a lot of the big names, Herukes Plumeris, John Arnold, Andre Van Heerden, Andre Thorburn, Keith Kruger, J.D. Van Deventer. It was an extraordinary experience. So there's really no going back in terms of South Africans for me. I have a vested interest, you could say.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it all started with the king, Thorburn himself. I'm really happy about that. I think everybody should, everybody has to own a Thorburn. It's just really, he's got a special thing going.
My knowledge of the South African guys is relatively limited. I have a Gareth Bull and I have a Jason Guthrie, but I must admit I don't know as much as I should about these guys. So I'm looking forward to talking about it with you moving forward.
I can most certainly help with that.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Enough about me, man.
So my story is pretty similar to yours, Tyler. I had always had a knife ever since I was very little. It was like a Spyderco Endura. It's like one of those saber grind ones. It's half serrated on the bottom. It's just one of those typical first knives, right?
Yeah.
I got that in 2001. I still have that knife.
It's a great knife.
I don't get rid of a lot of stuff either. I'm kind of a pack rat. But I started out with that, but I was always more into guns. My brother was into guns. We were into hunting. We were all about that. And I was all about that for a very long time. Up until about 2 years ago. The biggest thing that changed for me 2 years ago is I moved from my home state of Georgia all the way to California. And for those that don't know or is not into guns, California hates guns. They really do. And like 75% of my collection of guns, which I had a lot of guns. I had more guns than I have knives now, which I had like 60 guns. I had to get rid of a lot of them. And like my thing is when I get rid of something that's a hobby, I try to hold on to that cash to invest into another hobby. There's always going to be something else over the hill, and I don't want to lose that. So I kept that to the side, and I needed a new knife because that Spyderco is getting super old, and I have never sharpened it ever since 2001. So it's basically a butter knife, and I didn't even know like you could. Honestly, I was like, it's just a knife, right? I don't know. So last year, for Valentine's Day, my wife bought me a ZT 0450. And that was that. Yeah, right? She wishes so much she never bought that knife, trust me. Because that really opened it up for me. It's like, so I had it, and then I'd been a gamer too, so I always knew about Reddit. I always went to Reddit for like Destiny, Call of Duty, Halo, all that stuff. And I was like, well, they have to be a knife Reddit, and I found Knife Club around that same time. And started posting pictures, started talking to people, started hearing how great these other knives were. So I kind of got engulfed in the community. It's a really good community too. I think you said that too, Frank. It's like one of the best communities I've ever seen.
100%.
It's impressive. It's good.
Yeah, it's very supportive. Sometimes supportive in a bad way, but supportive nonetheless.
Yeah.
So I started hearing about all these other ones, and I got some more ZTs, and I just loved them. Like last year was the first time I ever even knew about a flipper knife. Like I never knew about that, and I thought that was so cool. And it just started going up from there, like hedonic adaptation kind of took over. And the very next step I hit, it seemed like what I was just having wasn't like enough, like the paramilitary twos and all that seemed not to quite scratch the itch as much as the other stuff. So it went up to Riot. I really love Riot. I still love Riot. I think they're one of the best production manufacturers that we have right now. They make extremely good knives.
Agree.
Their quality control is insane. The only bad part is they're in China. But, as long as the product's good and like the quality is there, I don't care. I don't care. It could be from the moon, you know? As long as it's there.
They have a fairly unique story in the sense that that guy David Dang
He just
is
lives
very
there.
much he's a knife nut, you know, in the very coolest sense. So
Yeah. The biggest story I hear with that, like when I like research them, is the dude likes knives. He wants to build knives. He just happens to live in China.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
so he's honestly, you know, he's gonna start building the knives there in China. But that was like my next step up. I got a Riot Future, and that was like my first knife. That was like a big purchase. I was like, oh man, that was $500, and I
that's
really
like
liked it.
0 to the speed of sound right there. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, it gets worse. Just wait.
Yeah, it does. I know
Oh,
this story.
This
Yeah.
is
I've
all
seen
in
the pictures.
2000. This is all in 2017. Just keep that in mind. In a span of 10 months, all this is happening.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah,
Try cocaine; it will go badly for you.
yeah. Luckily, I'm only addicted to caffeine and knives. But I've always been like that in everything. Like I just told you, I had 60 guns. Like who has 60 guns? Me, because I'm
That's
crazy.
insane.
It's like who has like all 3 gaming systems and like 40 games for each one? Me, because I just jump over. I don't know. I just jump in. But back into the knife. So I got the integral, the future. I loved it so much. I found another one. I knew they were going to be hard to come by, so I bought another one. I have 2. I have one in Damasteel and one in M390. So it went up from there to like my very first real custom knife was a Thorburn. It was an L53. And it was very early on I got that. And that was my first custom knife. That was my first like big, huge purchase. Like, oh my God. And I didn't know anything about Thorburn except he was from South Africa and he's supposed to make really good knives, which is both true. And I liked it. And like I just kept staying on Reddit and I got on the Instagram. And Instagram kind of like spurred off that knife photography, like little sub hobby of mine. It's like I never even thought about photography until I got into knives and how, you know, beautiful they can be under the composition and everything. And it's fun. It's really fun to take pictures of them. I like taking pictures of them almost as much as I like carrying them.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I would totally agree. And I've talked to some of my friends and even family about it, how it's photography and Instagram and these knives is certainly an interesting development that happens. I also really enjoy trying to get the nicest angle and then making the picture look nice. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. And it's something I never even thought about until I got into the hobby. And I think for me, the biggest thing, this is like the biggest caveat, like the thing that really just draws me in. There's so much like knife stuff that's limited editions, or like there's only 10, or this is the only one. And that plays with my psyche like so much. It's like, oh man, they only made 3 of those. I'm going to have 2 of them type mentality, you know?
That's true.
And it's accessible. You know, it's not like a Ferrari, you know, where they build 100
Exactly.
Enzos where they cost $1 million. This is like they built one of these and it's the Bugatti of the knife world, but it costs $1,000. And that's totally
Exactly. So that really like spurred my collecting mentality, and so I went from the Thorburn to like a Shirogorov Hati R, which is really nice, and then I think I got another Shirogorov. I sold all my Spydercos. I have 0 Spydercos right now, and then I really started diving deep into like all the Riots that I got, and then the most recent. I mean, it's been so many different purchases in such a little bit of time. I can't hardly keep up with them. When I took a collection picture about a week ago, I was like, in my head, I had to go through all the things. Like, is this all of them? I think it's all of them. I don't know. That's how bad it was. But recently, I jumped into the Gavco knives, and I love that dude's work. I really do.
You don't
I-
say.
Yeah.
You
I
have
really-
an epic Gavco collection. I have the one, but yours is incredible.
Thank you. I mean, it's so unique. It's so like you just know it's a Gavco. I love that. Like I could hand you another knife made by another maker, and you'd be like, oh, I don't really know. It kind of looks like a Peter Carey, but it could be somebody else, or that kind of looks like something. You know, same thing with Tashi Barusha. It's like when you see a Tashi Barusha, you know that's Tashi Barusha. But that's really. After getting that Thorburn, and then after like really opening myself up to the community and just listening to everybody and just experiencing everything. It's like, oh man, Gavco, I gotta have one. I gotta have 6. Like when I find something I really, really like, I usually end up with more than one of the same model. It's the same way with, I probably have like 4 or 5 duplicates in my collection that I have more than one of the model. And that's part of the fun for me, is getting the same thing that I really like but slightly different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really where I'm at now. I just really dove into the community and enjoy the collecting aspect, the rarity aspect of getting something that's like uniquely yours. And I don't see it slowing down. I mean, it's got to slow down a little bit every now and then, but
I think all 3 of us are in definitely still growing phase of our collecting and our purchasing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can definitely see that.
And if I may, like, springboard a little bit off of what you were saying, when you guys talk about your stories, it jars my memory a little bit about what's going on. And it's interesting that both of you chose Thorburn as your sort of first custom grail. Very interesting to me. So certainly I have a lot to learn about those makers from you guys. I would say for me it was the Peter Rizzenti Nirvana.
Yeah.
That was my first.
That's such a good first knife.
Yeah, man. When I got the Spyderco, I was just blown away by the whole integral handle thing, and so I definitely went down that rabbit hole and eventually found myself in a position to buy a full custom Nirvana, and that was, $1,200. That was my first, like, over $1,000 purchase and big custom knife purchase, and definitely I was thinking about that as you were mentioning your story there.
It's certainly a good one.
Yeah, then unfortunately that was lost, but that's for another day to discuss. I have another one, though, so we're good.
Nice. Well, those are some good stories, guys. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Listen, everybody, we do plan on doing a little bit of like a news, current events thing at the end of each podcast. We wanted to keep this one a little bit short and sweet since it's just about us and not about interesting knives. So we wanted to let you guys go, but do understand that in the future we plan to do these for about an hour, and at the end we'll cover some interesting stuff. Maybe a new model's coming out, maybe a show's coming up, or we just returned from a show. Although that would probably be an episode all in itself. But thanks so much for listening, guys. We hope you enjoyed this. We are all about feedback. Please leave a comment or message us. We will get an email put together for this and everything like that. Let us know what you think. So yeah, thanks a lot for listening, guys. Josh, where can we find you?
So I go by echo_does_knives on Instagram, and that's the best place.
Cool. And Dr. Frunkey, where can we find you?
I mean, I'm kind of all over Instagram and YouTube right now. I would say the easiest way to get in touch with me is hit me up on Instagram. I'm pretty much hitting refresh on that constantly all day. And then if you want to send me an email, drfrunkey@gmail.com also works.
Sweet. And guys, you can find me on Instagram at TovarishWorks, on YouTube, TovarishWorks, and you can email me at TovarishWorks@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.